so the question...
What happens if you shoot a cap gun in space?
Like from Earth or space?
Space.
I don't know, Jack, what would happen?
Okay, so what would happen is all the regular things would happen because the gunpowder has its own fire agent, so it will still explode.
Without oxygen?
Yeah, it will. Quite crazy, I know, right?
Crazy.
Found a random stranger that I don't know, and I'm going to ask him the same physics question I've asked everyone else. So what would happen if you shot a cap gun in space? Like, you know what a cap gun is?
Yes.
Yeah, what do you think would happen? Like, would there be a flash? Would there be any burning happening? Would there be any sound? And would there be any recoil?
I would say no. No oxygen. You need oxygen to ignite. No sound, once again. No air to transmit sound. And as far as recoil, I don't think so. There's no gravity. Depends how close you are.
Well, so here's the actual answer.
Yeah.
So with regards to sound, you are correct. There will be absolutely no sound because there's no air in space. But with regards to the flame and the explosion from the cap gun, there will be, because gunpowder is actually its own oxidizer, which means it burns on its own. So for example, if you think of a normal firearm, the bullet is locked inside the shell and there's no oxygen in the shell. It's jam-packed with gunpowder. So gunpowder can burn on its own without oxygen. That's just an interesting fact to know. It's from chemistry. And with regards to recoil, with a cap gun, of course there won't be any recoil, but that's because there won't be any force, because it's all about Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So there's no force pushing backwards or forward, so there wouldn't be a recoil force in space because there's nothing going anywhere with a cap gun.
Hello. So the question we were asking people today is, what would happen if you fired a cap gun in space?
I don't know. My guess would be that it wouldn't shoot because there's no oxygen in space, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, so what actually would happen is, since the powder in the gun it has its own combustion agent, which would set off the explosion.
Today we're going to talk about what happens if you shoot a cap gun in space.
What happens?
Well, what do you think happens? I'm interested, what will happen? What will you hear? What will you see? What will you see, any burning gunpowder? Will you see a flash? Will there be an explosion? Will you have any recoil? What do you think will happen?
Well, I would think that there would be no actual flames because there's no oxygen in space and you need oxygen to make things burn, but I don't know.
How about sound? Would you hear anything?
No.
How about, recoil? Would there be any recoil? Would you start flying backwards?
Yes.
Okay, so now I'll give you the real answer.
Okay.
So for sound, you won't hear anything. For the explosion, there actually will be an explosion because gunpowder has its own oxidizer in it. Because gunpowder self-ignites. Think about it in a real firearm. There's the cartridge is sealed, so there's no oxygen in there. And gunpowder has its own oxidizer, so it actually burns itself. The grass this time instead of the road. But we'll actually get up on the sidewalk, and I'm going to interview this person I found on the street. It's like Sam Messi or something. It's apparently that's what her name is. So I have a little physics question for you, and just got to get that lighting in. So what would happen if you shot a cap gun in space? Would you hear any sound? Would there be any recoil? And would there be a flash or an explosion?
Like from Earth or space?
Like from Earth or space?
More I'm not here to judge. If you're in space.
I don't think anything.
Do you think there'll be a flash?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
How about sound?
No.
How about recoil?
No.
You got 2 out of 3 right. There won't be any sound and there won't be any recoil. But hey, there will be a flash though, and that's because the gunpowder in the cap, it has its own oxidizer.
Oh!
Yeah.
That's
cool.
It's
So what an oxidizer is, it can self-combust, you know how you need oxygen for fire? Well, with gunpowder, it's its own oxygen basically, if that's the easiest way to think about it. But you have it, right? And then it just kind of lights up on its own. So that's pretty cool. And just the easiest way to imagine it is if you have a real gun and you have the little bullet there, there's no air in the bullet.
Really?
Oh, well, that's okay if you didn't know. But there's normally no air in those bullets, right?
Okay.
So the gunpowder has to burn on its own. But yeah, there wouldn't be any kick, obviously, and there wouldn't be any sound. So we're here in Banff National Park. We're in Banff actually, and just found another person here who doesn't know much about physics. So I'm gonna ask you a really simple question.
Yeah, go for it.
So what will happen? You know what a cap gun is? No.
Yes.
Okay. What will happen if you shoot a cap gun in space? Like, will there be any sound? Will there what will happen? Like, will there be an explosion? Will you see a flash of gunpowder or something like that? And will there be any recoil?
There's gonna be an explosion.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
But would there be a flash?
Yes.
Okay. How about recoil? No? Well, what about the sound? Would you hear anything? You didn't say no? Okay, fair enough. Well, here's the answer. The answer is there wouldn't be any sound, so you're right. And with the gunpowder, the flash, there would be a flash. And that's because gunpowder is its own oxidizer. Like, yes, there's no oxygen in space, but it still burns. Think about it like a gun, because in guns, the bullet is sealed and there's no oxygen in the bullet. So obviously, it's its own oxidizer, means it can combust on its own, which, that's why you get the flash. And there won't be any recoil because, according to Newton's third law, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. There's no recoil, so you won't go anywhere. But if you shot a real gun,
is all the regular things would happen. The force that it's applying with the combustion would send the astronaut flying backwards with the no gravity.
Interesting.
Is there air resistance? Yeah.
I don't know about this Newton guy though.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.